In the previous programs, John Erwin has introduced the idea of basic needs and how they drive student behavior. In this video, John will talk about how this knowledge can improve instruction, engage more students in learning, and provide the basis for effective behavior and classroom management. And now, John Erwin.
Okay, this afternoon we're going to be pretty active, so you'll stay awake, and that'll be good. I added a couple other strategies to the list that we've been developing. Corners, which is the activity we did with the needs. And now we're going to do, well, next we're going to do a table discussion, and then we're going to do an activity called graffiti. And you'll see how that works in just a minute. What I'd like you to talk about at your table with your team is this question. So what? What might be some of the implications of this idea of, first of all, the needs in general, but the internal profile for classroom instruction and management? So if we do indeed have these 5 basic needs, and we do have them in varying degrees, what does that mean for classroom management and instruction? So talk about that at your tables for about 3 minutes. On your mark, get set, go.
Well, you and I have talked about it before too, just the way that our schedules are, those kids that need movement or freedom, it just works out through the day that
there's always breaks, like they go to the literacy centers and there's carpet time and they go to math games or something.
And then we go into writing and then we go into science modules. So it's like sit.
So we could assume that we know, but I think the first step would be coming up with some kind of tool.
come up with a tool for identifying, and then you work around building in those systems or that structure or some sort of setting, you know, for the kids that need that freedom. But then they also, you need to be able to rein that in.
Well, and it's just like
differentiated.
I can't even say that word. Yeah, and if you think about people that want power, you can make those be, especially if they're your more rebellious boys, or like you were saying earlier, you could give them some sort of power or position in the classroom.
Okay, well, good. Oh, yeah. Well, you know that, you know your developmental level better than I do, but yeah.
But, I mean, in a classroom management style isn't one management style for the whole class. So you automatically know that you've got to differentiate, you know, how that changes instruction.
Woohoo! Okay. Thanks. Some of you might have guessed it from my amazing rhythmic skills up here that I am a drummer. And before I was a teacher, my 10 years after high school, I spent my time playing drums with rock bands and jazz groups and stuff up and down the East Coast. And then I got married and decided maybe I needed to get a real job. And that's when I went into teaching. But after 10 years of entertaining people whose minds are on sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the next obvious step was to teach high school. So anyway, some of the same skills. Okay, what did you say were some of the implications of this thing to the classroom? Yes?
Being aware of the needs of the kids that are different from you and, you know, hit them during the course of the day.
Okay, that's an advanced answer. That's because that usually doesn't come out till later. You need to be aware of the kids who have different need profile than you, and the more different they are, the more often we ignore them. And I'll have to do true confessions. When I was in the classroom, my lowest need by far, my love and belonging power like 23, 22, very, very close, followed by fun. I bet you'd never guess that. Freedom, and then way down here at the bottom is survival. So I apologize to you survival people for this next piece. I would often teach, I taught the way I was. So I liked group projects. I liked challenging them. Sometimes I'd get them in a little bit of friendly cooperation, one group versus others, that kind of thing. And I can remember very clearly one time when I I was explaining this what I thought was a really cool presentation for a summative assessment for a unit. I was all excited about explaining it to the kids. And they were going to be working in a group and doing a presentation to the class, so it was love and belonging and power. And as I'm going through my explanation, this timid girl kind of raised her hand, and I said, "Yes, Nancy?" And she said, well, they had to go home that night and do a little homework assignment to get ready for the next day's group activity. So when I was explaining that, little Stancy's hand went up, and I said, "Yes, Stancy?" She said, "How would you like our heading on the homework paper?" Okay, so where's she coming from? Survival, right? Clear expectations, you know, she wants to know what goes on what line and all that stuff. And I stepped all over her need. I said, "I don't care, put your name on the paper." You know? And you could just see the anxiety coming over her face. I wasn't being clear with my expectations. And I went back into my exciting, you know, assessment that I was explaining, and her hand came up again. I said, "Yes, Stancy." She goes, "Would you like our name on the left side of the paper or the right side of the paper?" I'm like, "I don't care, just put it on there so I can read it." Well, again, her brain, you could see it visibly turning inside her head, just turning over. And she was like very, you know, upset. And I kept going on with my explanation, and her hand came up again. "Would you like it in print?" This is an 8th grade student. "Would you like it in print or cursive?" I don't care. And this other kid must have sensed her anxiety, and he said, "Would you like us to do our heading the way Mr. Riker has us do our heading?" And I went right to Mr. Riker, who's like the most, I guess Freud would have called him, anal retentive teacher in the world. And I said, "Yes, do it like that." And then I had to go down to Mr. Riker. "How do you have the kids do their heading?" 45 minutes later, you know, I've got this explanation of it's got to be like this. But I didn't realize at the time I was ignoring those kids with a high survival need. So I learned about this stuff in the next summer, and I realized, wow, these kids really need clear expectations. They need an agenda on the board. They need you to stick to the agenda. They need procedures. But one thing that they need to know all the time is what's expected of them at any particular time, and they want it, you know, very clearly spelled out. So we often teach the way we are. So once I was aware that there were some kids in there with a high survival need, I started appealing to that need. So what is your lowest need, and how might you appeal to that in the classroom? Okay. In a classroom, what are you going to think you're going to have? Mostly love and belonging, mostly power, mostly freedom, or a mix? You're going to get a mix. Generally, you're going to get a mix. In my experience, about half the class is going to be love and belonging, and then it's going to break down from there. But in my experience, in America anyway, most kids have a high love and belonging need. But again, different cultures are different. In America, when I do trainings like this, almost always in teacher trainings, the biggest group is the love and belonging group. In Australia, what do you think the largest group was there? No, freedom. Every single group I worked with was freedom. Now think about their heritage. These are, you know, descendants of people who had a healthy disregard for law and authority. This was a penal colony. So that I think that has genetically, you know, been passed down. So high freedom need in every group. They have an interesting school schedule down there. They start in January. January 1st is their first day of school. Imagine that. They go 10 weeks on, then they have 2 weeks off. Then they have 10 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 10 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 10 weeks on, 5 weeks off, and they take the 5 weeks over the holidays. So they have this freedom kind of built into their schedule that they know they can get through the next 10 weeks because they've got 2 weeks off after that. And during those 2 weeks, they travel. They travel all over the place. They travel to Southeast Asia. They travel to South Africa. They travel all around Australia. Big freedom need. Okay, but back to the classroom. So if we have a mix in the classroom, what does that mean for our instruction? Differentiate. So you can differentiate in terms of the needs, and if you differentiate in terms of the needs, you're automatically going to be differentiating in terms of learning styles. Kids with, for example, with a high love and belonging need, their learning style, they often are auditory learners. They like to talk to each other and listen to each other. High power need, a lot of kids like to do stuff. They like to, you know, they need the kinesthetic, the tactile and kinesthetic, they need to do stuff. Same with the freedom kids, they need to get up and move around. So if you're differentiating in terms of needs, you're also probably going to be doing a good job of differentiating. They really overlap. Okay, now once in a while, like I had an experience, where the whole class was very skewed toward one need, and I was not meeting that need. I knew I was going to get this class in June. I knew I was going to have them in September. And they were a group of kids who kind of got scheduled together because of their special needs. They were only 15 kids in the group. About 12 of them were labeled ED, and the other kids were various learning disabilities. So I knew I was getting them. I'm not a special ed teacher, but I knew I was going to have that group, and they were 11th graders and 12th graders mixed together in an English class. So I spent the summer preparing for this class. I know they're going to be tough, but they're going to be successful in my class. They've never been successful in English class before, but they're going to be successful in my class. Little arrogance, because I know about Glasser and choice theory. So I spent the summer creating a need-satisfying units for the whole year. Oh boy, am I ready for them. I had activities, I had all sorts of good stuff, high-interest learning and that kind of thing. And they were successful in September. They were successful, but they were only successful at one thing: keeping me from teaching them anything. These guys, they were the class from heck. One kid would come in the classroom, one kid would be leaning back in their chair, another kid would come into the classroom, kick the legs out from under the other kid, and then so we spend the period dealing with that. Or one of the girls was rather morbidly obese, and she came in, and you could hear the kid starting. It was one kid, when she started walking in the doorway, you could hear, and she'd come in and he'd go, fat. So now I got to deal with that, and they just kept taking me off task. I ain't going to do this blank, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sitting in my office at home on Columbus Day weekend, banging my head against my hand, going, what am I going to do with these kids? And there was an old needs profile, internal profile assessment sitting on my desk, Pete's Pathogram by Pete Peterson developed it. And I had just done a in-service for my own faculty. And that was sitting on the desk, and I was just kind of staring into space, and that caught my eye, and I just had an epiphany. I said, oh my goodness, maybe these guys are just very skewed toward one of the needs, and I'm just not addressing it, so which one would it be? Well, I ruled out love and belonging right off the bat. Okay, they're not a love and belonging class. Definitely not that. Survival, I don't think so, because these are high-risk behavior kids. These kids were all involved in drugs, alcohol, driving fast, all sorts of unsafe, high-risk behaviors. So ruled out survival. I ruled out power because none of these kids were achieving in any area of their lives. They weren't like, not so good at academics, but really good at sports, or they just weren't really high achievers in any area of their life. So I kind of ruled out power. So I'm left with freedom and fun. Well, the classroom can't be just a circus, so I can't just focus on fun all the time, and I wasn't feeling safe at trying to have fun with these kids. So I said, okay, let's suppose, just for the sake of it, that it's freedom, that they have a very high freedom need. Now, supposing that isn't going to make things any worse because they're not learning anything anyway, so let me just think about what the classroom would look like if it were a high freedom need classroom. So I thought about it, and then I realized what I needed to do, and I wasn't happy about it because it meant going in on Monday, which was Columbus Day, and reconfiguring my room just for this one class. So I did, and when the kids came in on Tuesday, first I had to get their attention. So I took that compendium of activities and materials and curriculum that I developed over the summer, and I went over to the garbage can, and I said, this is just garbage, and I threw it in the garbage can. Bam! The kids were like, whoa, Mr. Erwin's lost it. But I had their attention. I said, this isn't working. And they were listening. And I said, let me assume a couple things. And the dangers of assuming. But I said, let me assume that you all want to either go on to 12th grade next year or graduate and get out of here. Yeah, grumble, grumble. Yeah, we hate this stinking place. Want to get out of here. Okay. Okay, good. We have the same goal. So, if that's the case, then here's what we're going to do. And what we're doing right now, all the stuff that I developed over this isn't working. So I'm going to try something different with you. And we're going to try it to see if we can all be successful at getting what we want, which means you graduating and getting moving on with your life, getting out of here. So I said, here's what we're going to do. Every 5 weeks, I'm going to give you a list of the requirements for this 5 weeks. And if you do the requirements, you get credit for the class. If you don't do the requirements, you get an incomplete until you do the assignments. And this was back in the old days. New York State has always had state assessments. We had the Regents Competency Test, the RCT. And on the Regents Competency Test, you had to pass this to graduate. You had to write 2 different kinds of business letters. A business letter ordering something through the mail. Boy, is that a useful skill or what? You know, I write letters ordering stuff through the mail all the time, don't you? Anyways, try to make that useful. So anyway, that, they had to write a business letter complaining about something. You know, we can relate to that. They had to write a report. They were given a list of disjointed facts that they had to organize and put into a unified report. And then they had to write a composition, which was usually an open-ended topic, you know, something that they could relate to, that, you know, they could write about their lives somehow. So those are the 4 things that they had to write. So I was preparing them for that, and I said, okay, so this is what we're going to do. At this center, you have to write, at this center is the business letters ordering something through the mail. You have 20, I've been collecting assignments over the years, so I had 20 choices of business letters. You only have to write 3. But they have to be 100. They have to be 100. You have to get an A+ on them. Okay. So over here there are 20 business letters complaining about something, and again, 20 choices. You'll have to write 3, and they have to be perfect by the time you hand them in. Over here, the reports, you have to write 3. Again, there's 20 choices. You have to get a B or better on that to get credit for the course. And over here's the composition, same thing. B, you have to write 2 this time, just 2, but they have to be B or better. You can rewrite them as many times as you need to get the grade that's required. You can go in any order that you want to. You can start off here and bounce here. You can do all of the compositions, then move to the business letters. However you want to do it is okay. It's also okay to get help from each other, help from me, as long as you don't copy each other, but you can help each other. And once in a while, I had a chill-out chair in the corner of my room. If you came in and you were brought in baggage from home, or if somebody died in your family, or somebody harassed you on the bus, you could kind of cool yourself down over here before you came back. And some days, some kids used that. It wasn't abused though. And sometimes you can just take a nap. If you had a really bad day, you can just put your head down once in a while, not all the time. So, do you understand? They go, huh? What are we going to do? So I did the whole explanation over again. What? I was picking my nose. So I was leaning toward the light. But I finally got it through to him, and I said, John, do you understand that? Yeah, we got to do this. Okay, good. Now, where do you want to start? And they started settling in. And John Hammond, who I had for 3 years, 3 years. This is his 3rd year. We're going to be successful this time. He was in other classes. He says, so where should I start? Now, here's a high freedom kid asking where he should start. So I know his trick. I said, why don't you start with a composition? Knowing that he wouldn't possibly choose that because I just suggested it. He goes, oh, I think I'll do the business letter. I said, yes, okay. But as it turned out, the kids did it. Now, there were a couple kids who tested me, at the end of the 10 weeks, or 5 weeks. At the end of the 5 weeks, they had not gotten complete, so they got an incomplete on their report card. They go, what's this 11? I know I got higher than 11. I think at least I got a 30. Yes, you did at least get a 30, but you're not complete yet because you haven't met the requirements. And they finally figured it out, and then they did it. Out of that class, all of them either went on to 12th grade or graduated, except for one kid who ended up in jail, but that was a different story. He wasn't meeting his freedom need very well there. But it just, by appealing to the high need in that class, it made it successful for them. And I got to tell you, one of the funniest things that happened during that experience was one kid came over to me and said, can you show me how to set up this report? Because it was you had all these facts, and you just kind of went down and went I for something that would go in the introduction, and A for something that would go in body paragraph A, and B in front of the ones that would go in body paragraph B. So I was showing the kid how to do that, and another kid came over and said, could you show me? Another kid came over, could you show me? And pretty soon, all 15 kids are sitting there getting the same instruction at the same time. Now, I had the thought, if I tell them that, it'll just fall apart. But since they're not aware that they're working together cooperatively, I'm just going to keep it to myself. Because if I'd said, hey, you guys are all working together cooperatively, they would have started calling each other fat and kicking each other's chairs out from each other. So that really worked well. Any other, this is also something you can think about in your relationships with your children or your significant others or friends in your life. My highest need is love and belonging. My wife's highest need is freedom. Do you see some opportunities for conflict there? Some nice opportunities for conflict, especially I travel all the time. So I'm gone for, say, a week. I come home on Friday night. What do I want? I want love and belonging. I want to sit on the couch, hold hands, and talk about our week. What does she want? Get the hell. I mean, she wants to, here's the kids, bye-bye. I'm out of here. So we knew about this when we got married. We knew we had done our own internal profiles together before we got married. She's certified in choice theory too. So we decided we needed to do something about this because this could create real problems in our marriage. It's kind of like role reversal, male-female role reversal, my being the love and belonging person, her being the freedom person. But anyway, so we worked it out. This is the understanding. There's an understanding that if I'm gone for the week, I come home on Friday night, guess what? She gets all of day Saturday and part of the day Sunday if she wants to do whatever she wants, and she'll go shopping with her mother, she'll go up to Niagara on the Lake and go to the spa up there and get her nails done or something. But she just knows that I can stay home with the kids because it's okay. That's where I'll get my love and belonging from the kids. She'll get her freedom from the kids. And when she comes back on Sunday, life is good. And there's no arguments. So you can use that to kind of work things out. Two people with a high power need. Does that mean they're incompatible? No. It just means you can figure it out. You can work it out. Turn back to your tables, talk about what you've just heard and what that means for you or your classroom.
Very nurturing, where he We leave this video with the workshop participants discussing how the knowledge of students' basic needs relates to their teaching situations. In the next video, we'll hear the results of their discussion and learn specific classroom practices that will meet students' needs and prevent discipline problems.